everyone, to another episode of Leadership from the Heart. I'm your host, Romy, and today we are going solo. Today's episode is all about why this old school way of thinking and leadership of icing people out is just outdated and it no longer works, especially in this times of where we're telling people or we're talking about psychological safety, right? And so what does icing people out even look like? And so let me start there. This is the typical leader that gets mad that maybe you missed a performance goal, you missed a KPI, or something went wrong, right? Like they're just disappointed. And instead of expressing that disappointment, what they do is they just don't talk to you. They no longer invite you to meetings. They go quiet instead of going direct. You feel like something is wrong, but nobody's telling you that something is wrong, right? And that's what I call icing people out. It's a really old school way of thinking. And if we think about the way we were raised, it's kind of like that too, right? Like our parents, when they were mad, and it's understandable, like you don't want to talk right now. And you also need to tell the person what you're upset about and that you just need some time, right? And so in this day and age where we're always talking about psychological safety, icing people out is the exact opposite of that. It's telling people that when you make a mistake or when I am disappointed in you, I am not going to talk to you. I'm not going to invite you to meetings. I'm not going to include you. You are now excluded. And that just throws people straight into survival mode, especially if you're not looking to get like progressive discipline on this person or you're not looking to remove them from the organization. Then what you're doing is literally just throwing a tantrum. And I know, like, for me, when I see this, it gives me the ick, but also like, I don't have tolerance for it, right? And this is one of the most quietest forms of what I call leadership harm that has been so normalized back in the day. And I say back in the day, I'm saying like 5, 10 years ago, still happening now, right? But when you look at who's doing it now, it's different. And it's just something that I would definitely wanted to talk about because it's just not okay anymore. This is a behavior that was inherited. It's how we see people act and we think it's okay. However, if we're talking about being professional in the workplace, then professional looks like telling people what it is, right? And telling them in the most professional way possible. But also, if you need time and you need space because you are disappointed, then you say that so that they're not creating stories in their head, right? When you do ice people out, this old school mindset is teaching people that I care about my authority over you more than I care about your development. You're using fear as the motivator. And while you can use fear as a motivator, I've just never seen fear as a motivator be sustainable, right? You can use it for a time period, but eventually the oppressed will rise, right? And so if you continue to use fear over and over and over again, just constantly reminding people that they're going to lose their jobs if they don't do this. And these are things that are true. However, you have to understand what this activates within people. And when you understand psychology and what it activates within people, then I think that leaders, at least leaders that want to be good leaders, will change their approach a bit and come from a place of positive intent, right? I don't think anybody, and I've said this many times, but I don't think anybody wakes up in the morning saying, I want to go to work and fuck shit up. And so if we can approach it in that way, people are still going to miss the mark. People are still going to have accidents. People are still going to do things that humans do. They're humans. The reason why you're a leader is because you're supposed to be the one that can guide them through that to the other side. And sometimes the other side is no longer working here. However, that can also be done with so much grace and care that it doesn't necessarily damage the person's thought of themselves, right? And that's a podcast for another time. But, going back to this icing out, it's emotional distance because the leader doesn't know how to process their own emotions. And so for me, that's a little bit of a cop out because as a leader, what you should be doing is working on yourself. I don't think that we get the opportunity as leaders to just continue the way we are and not try to be better, and not only better in at work with the metrics, the KPIs, the milestones we want to hit, but also better for yourself, right? Better person, because you're not just doing it for you anymore. If you're a leader of people, there are people that are quote unquote following you, and you want to be the best version of yourself if people are following you because you are setting the pace, you are setting the tone. And so as you elevate and you get better, inevitably the people that report to you, that follow you, will also get better. And so therefore, processing your emotions is necessary because you want the people below you to also process their emotions and be able to communicate effectively to their people. And then you want those people to do the same thing, and so on and so forth, right? That's how you create the bench. That's how you create the legacy. That's how you create a bunch of leaders. It's not using what you know doesn't work and continuing to use it. Now, don't get me wrong. There is a time where you need to step up as a leader and say what it is and be a hard ass and say it, but like say it. I'm disappointed. I really thought we were gonna X, Y, or Z. I really expect you guys to X, Y, or Z, and then we can move forward, right? Like, but everyone's still in the family. Everyone's still invited to the table. Everyone is still here until you're not, right? But this emotional roller coaster of I'm not talking to you, of I'm going to ice you out. I'm not going to invite you to the meeting. You're no longer included for now, right? Until you do something good and then you've earned my love back. I don't it's never sat right with me. And now it's actually it's getting louder for me is what I'm trying to say. And so what's really happening here though is the leader who's icing people out is just using avoidance, and avoidance is not leadership, or their discomfort with confrontation. And again, we talked about the lack of emotional skill. All of those things, while you can have them because you're human too, leader, it is your responsibility though to improve that within yourself. Icing people out is not discipline. It's just avoidance dressed up as authority. And that's, I find it to be quite sad, which is why I wanted to make a whole podcast about it, because I know what it feels like to be iced out. I know what it feels like to ice people out. And I have to tell you, neither of them feel good. Neither of them feel good. You're literally going out of your way to ice someone out. That's how you know it's not aligned with you, because you have to go out of your way. And if you're purposefully going out of your way to not include them, to do this, to that, then it's inauthentic. Period. Point blank. Just say the thing, right? It's because what it does is it causes confusion, and it causes anxiety, and it causes this person to have shame about what? Shame about what? They missed a mark. They had an accident. Something happened. Unless it's tragic, about what? Like, think about that. What are we really trying to shame someone about? Are we trying to shame them into what we want them to be, so that now they're just hyper vigilant and not performing at a level that they used to because they're so afraid of being iced out again? You're not even getting the best of them, because when someone's operating from survival, they're not thriving. And I think we know that. And so when you're thinking about icing someone out, just think about how this actually impacts you as the leader. And if you're intelligent enough, and I'm going to say that out loud, but like then you'll understand that what you're actually doing is lowering performance. And so if you care about performance, then you'll do what you need to do to be able to go to that person and look them in the eye and say the thing, right? Make them feel safe, make them feel secure again, make them feel all the things so that they can actually perform at their highest level instead of performing from this survival place. Because selfishly, as the leader, you want performance to be optimal. You want it to be at a high level. How do you do that? By making people feel safe, by making people understand that they can make mistakes, and you will still be included into the work family, or whatever you want to call it, because when you ice someone out, they don't get bigger, they get smaller. And I don't know what kind of leader would want that, but I know that I don't want to be a leader like that. And I don't want a leader like that. Teams learn not to speak up. They're not allowed to make mistakes, that they can't challenge anything. And without challenging anything, there's never going to be any innovation. And we know that, because when teams are quiet, it usually means something is wrong. And that, I know you're trying to use accountability. I know you're trying to use your silence as accountability, but it's not accountability. This is withholding information that people actually need to know so that they can be successful. It's very selfish when you think about icing people out. And it's not to say that you can't take time for yourself. You can't say, look, really disappointed. I'm going to need some time. I gotta regulate. Right. And I want you to know that everything is going to be okay. Both things can be true, right? It doesn't have to be one or the other, because you can't grow in a room where you don't know what you did wrong. And so I find that when people are being iced out, they most of the time don't even know why they're being iced out. And that's the biggest problem, right? I think icing out comes from resentment, and resentment is just unexpressed expectations, right? Leadership gets lonely, but it shouldn't. That's why I created the Leadership Circle. It's a private space where real leaders gather to ask really honest questions, share hard earned wisdom, and grow together without any of this extra fluff. We're not here for the likes, we're here to leave a legacy. So if you've ever felt like you've had to figure it out alone, this is the space for you. This is not just a community. It's a conversation with real people doing real leadership, navigating team chaos, culture shifts, and just trying to grow together. So join us. You can try it free for 7 days, and then it's just $29 a month after that. You can cancel anytime, but you'll stay for the growth. So click the link in the show notes or head to our website, which is leadershipfromtheheart.co/community. See you inside. Unexpressed expectations, examples of unexpressed expectations are they should have known better. I shouldn't have to explain this. I already told them once. And so now silence becomes the punishment and punishment replaces clarity. And if we're going to deep dive into this just a little bit, knowing people, you're going to have to repeat yourselves, right? What I've noticed is at least 3 to 5 times. It's exhausting. Yes. Should you not have to repeat yourself? Perhaps. But that's also just learned behavior, right? Because when we think about people, like, and the psychology of people, it's always been said that people need to hear things more than once for it to stick, which is why, like on those info commercials, they repeat the number at least 3 times because people need to hear it to be able to remember it. And yet we grew up with, I should only have to ask you once and you should just be compliant. And so we've taken that into the workplace and, now I think it's a lot more lenient, but like prior to that, then I already asked you to do this. Listen, I'm guilty of this too, right? Like I don't do well having to ask somebody more than 3 times for the same thing. I don't do well about it, but then I've learned that, one, icing people out doesn't work, but two, what I've started to do is ask myself, like, how could I do this differently? I've asked for this 3 times. What can I learn from this on how to make this request again, but change the way I'm doing it? And so what I started to do was create a deadline, right? Create an expectation of I want this by this date or by this time, right? Because now the expectation has been set. Now the person has choice. They have agency to say, I'm either going to deliver it this on this date or at this time as requested, or I'm not. And then we have a performance conversation. And it's unemotional because the expectations has been set, the request has been made, and the deadline again has been set. So now we have a different conversation. Now we're getting to say, why aren't you doing this? Versus now me being mad that I had to repeat myself 3 times. You see the difference here? It's all about you in the first part of this, right? That I have to ask you 3 times for the same thing. The second time, once you set the expectations, once you've done your evaluation on how you can be better and how you can make the request better, then it changes into explain to me why you're not performing or why you're not turning this in as requested. Now it turns into a whole different conversation, right? It's no longer about me. It's literally just about them. What do I need? I need the thing to be done, right? That's what I need. And now they're not doing it. So let's talk about it. But it changes from my disappointment or like my personal opinion to these are the facts, right? These are the facts. And resentment, it grows when, again, expectations are unspoken. So when you find yourself getting frustrated, you have to start asking yourself why, because leadership doesn't have to be hard. You can set expectations and you can allow people to meet them or not meet them. Those are just facts, right? Unemotional. Hey, this was supposed to be done. You didn't do it. Let's talk about it. There's going to be consequences for not doing it. I don't know those right now, but I can just express that there will be, right? And then if you know the consequences, you should explain what the consequences are. But what I'm trying to say is that it doesn't have to be emotional. It could just be black and white and with a little bit of gray, but like black and white as far as like the person not meeting the expectation, right? And if we can just take this back to being more human and having more humanity, we're not saying performance doesn't matter. We're not saying behaviors don't matter. We're not saying results don't matter. We're saying all of those things matter. And so when you're not getting through to someone, instead of icing them out, instead of making them feel bad, instead of trying to punish them in the workplace, which is wild to me, let's start asking ourselves, what can I do better to make this land? What can I do better to set this expectation a little clearer? What can I do? Because what can I do opens up so many things. It opens up this idea that you're willing to self reflect, become aware, and try something different. And it also allows the person to know that you are trying to do something different, that this is not just on them, that this is on you too, because the truth is you both are doing this together, right? The co-creation is together. Both of you are creating this situation as long as all the expectations aren't clear. And so, I want us to get to a place where we are actually leading people, right? People are going to screw up. That's part of the formula, right? If they can't screw up, we can't get better because you have to try. In order to screw something up, you have to try. You have to take a risk. And so, as long as they know the parameters of the risk, and if the risk is too big, right, those are all things that you as a leader have to set. Hey, you can operate in between these two lines. Anything outside of these lines is out of bounds. So let them operate, right? As long as it doesn't, tragically, as long as it doesn't end in tragedy, then it's okay. Almost everything can be undone. And going back into this, way of thinking of icing people out and earning people's love back or earning back their good graces, it's a fallacy. It's just not real. It makes people want, then we're always operating based off of how you feel. And then I have to now manage your emotions. And as an employee, I should not have to manage your emotions. Those are for you to manage. I will manage mine. You manage yours, and let's just be adults and have a conversation. So, in wrapping up this short episode, I want to encourage you as a leader to just say the thing early and clear. Don't wait. Don't allow your frustration to build. If you see something, say something, right? Separate the emotion from the expectations. Here's what happened. Here's the impact. And here's what needs to change. Clear, cut, unemotional, because it doesn't have to be emotional. It's business, right? Invite correction and not fear. So making sure that they understand, yes, you made a mistake. Yes, there are consequences. And yes, you are still very much needed and wanted here. And that's it. Allow them to rebuild. People are already in their heads so much. Most people, can't say everybody, most people are already in their heads so much when they make a mistake. I find it to be really cruel for you to add on to that pressure, right? At least high performers are. And then I want you to allow space for people to recover, because it's going to take time for them to recover. When somebody messes up and it's knowing, and they know that they mess up and they're going to get the consequences or whatever, or no consequences, but there's always consequences. It's imperative that you let them know that it is okay beyond everything, even in the result of termination. You made a mistake. It's okay. You're going to recover. You don't have to stay here in this place of shame and guilt and fear, because when you stay in those three energies, you don't move. You don't move. You stay stagnant because you're afraid that any move you make will either make it worse or just continue to dig your grave, so to say. And I don't know. There's something disingenuous about that for me. And so what I wanted to do on this podcast is to invite the new generation, right? The next generation of leaders, the millennials, the Gen X, right? We have the ability to be different, to communicate effectively, the same way we are with our kids, right? When you look at how we're raising kids nowadays, it's very thoughtful and gentle parenting. And not that it needs to be gentle parenting in the workplace, but it does need to be less than what it's been, right? This idea of leaders icing you out to prove their authority over you or so that you can earn their good graces. I don't know. I would love to hear your thoughts. I don't think it fits anymore. I don't think it has a space here anymore. And I think it's being called out a lot more just because people are realizing how ineffective it actually is. And, you know, I think that again, this next generation has the opportunity to be transparent, to be emotionally intelligent, to be effective in the feedback that they give. And this is again, it's not being soft; it's actually being effective. And if you can turn this around and look at it, it's a little selfish as a leader, right? Because if I'm results focused and I understand that my behavior of icing people out is ineffective and does not allow them to perform at their best, and everybody's different. Some people need that kick in the ass and I'm all for it. But majority of people just need realignment and expectations and to have that conversation. And so again, not being soft, being effective. When you turn around and you look at it, it is self-serving you to not ice people out and to make them feel safe and to continue to give them the psychological safety that we keep talking about, and choose clarity over control and courage over comfort. Because silence is definitely not leadership. It's just unresolved discomfort with a little bit of power. And with that, I will end today's episode with one final question. Where have you iced someone out instead of saying the thing? And what will you do next time? I encourage you to try communicating, even communicating messy about how you feel, just so you can talk through your stuff. Don't forget to regulate first, though. And I hope this works for you. It works for me. It's worked for a lot of leaders that I see. And I just want to call out the fact that that piece, that icing out piece, is no longer effective. And so therefore we can put it down. We don't have to keep using it just because it's been used in the past. Just because this is the way we've always done it doesn't mean that's the way we have to continue doing it. And I'll talk to you guys next time on another episode of Leadership from the Heart. Peace. Wanna hear